Why is the wet weather tyre never used? If you're ever struggling in life, wondering whether you're any good at your job, just remember, the wet weather tyre exists in Formula 1. These poor tyres get created and probably have conversations amongst themselves wondering, is this the day? I bet they looked up at the weather in Singapore and thought, this is it, this is what I was created for. Now, there's rain forecast for the Japanese Grand Prix this weekend too, but you best believe they probably won't get a run out, especially in a competitive session like qualifying or the race. In Singapore, the race was delayed by so much in order to complete all the necessary grid procedures, did we really need all of them, that by the time we went racing, it was easily intermediate conditions. Those green striped tyres get all the fun. The reason the intermediates usually get the choice over the wets is because they are a massively preferred tyre in changeable conditions. Unless they are completely undrivable and the car will simply aquaplane off when the water is so deep that the tyres cannot clear the water fast enough, which leads to sliding off the track, the Inters are the pick of the bunch every day of the week. Why is this? Well, they are less aggressively grooved and suited for a much wider range of conditions than the wets. They can work on a pretty drenched track, clearing up to 30 litres of water per second at top speed, but also on a drying track where the rubber, if driven correctly, can wear away to match the track conditions and become this super soft hybrid tyre. Slick-to-mediates? Slin-to-mediates? My favourite name is probably the latter. Let me know what yours is. So the intermediates are a wonderful tyre for wet conditions. It's also worth mentioning that the wet tyre is dreadful, awful, shocking. We last saw them used at the Monaco Grand Prix where Sebastian Vettel was not happy at all with the pace they produced. He said after the race, "They are way too hard for this track and even for Imola they were too hard. It's just a bad tyre. It's basically useless. It looks nice but it doesn't really do anything. As soon as you can go to the intermediate, you do." Let's also mention the FIA's lack of enthusiasm to start a race when it's wet weather conditions. Safety in F1 is absolutely paramount, I completely get that. But what's the point in having wet tyres if you're not going to use them? Is it because of the comments Vettel made in Monaco about how horrendous they are that they tried to avoid using them at all costs? Whatever it is, we need improvements for those blue-walled beasts. We used to get excited when wet races came, but since Spa 2021, it's all kind of gone downhill, hasn't it? The first half of the Singapore Grand Prix was probably one of the most boring races we've ever seen. All drivers spread out and trying to manage the intermediate tyres for as long as they possibly could. If we'd started the race in wetter conditions, forcing wet tyres to be used, we at least have an element of strategy for the crossover between wets to inters and then inters to dries. That's the perfect recipe for a brilliant, unpredictable race. Also, when it's full wet and actually raining, you get drivers doing different lines and being able to do some really naughty overtakes. Anyone remember Verstappen's move on Rosberg at Brazil 2016? That's the sort of stuff that makes wet races awesome. But when it's intermediate conditions, all that happens is a dry line appears which creates single file racing, and the second you do go offline, you're on the wet stuff, have no grip, and you're off. Like Hamilton did in Imola last year and also Singapore this year. There you have it, why the wet weather tyre is never used and why we need them back in F1. What's your opinion on all of this? Let us know in the comment section below.